The minimum wage has been gazetted by the Minister of Labour, so statutorily employers have an obligation to conform to that. That does not necessarily mean that the NEF and its members agrees with the minimum wage that has been gazetted. While we support the principle and the need for having a minimum wage, our stance has all along been that this needs to be done on a sectoral basis and not on a national level. And you would recall that prior to this gazette, we had sectoral minimum wages for the agriculture sector as well as the domestic sector. And we remain cognizant of the fact that there are other sectors within the Namibian economy that are on low wages, and we were very supportive of then putting in place sectoral minimum wages that will deal with those sectors. Our submission is and has always been to the Ministry of Labour that putting a minimum wage of $18 will have negative impacts on employment and could lead to retrenchments and job losses if it is not adequately considered and if it is not implemented in a phased approach. So we remain cognizant of the fact that this risk is real. It's going to threaten profitability of businesses and continued existence of businesses and employment.
Well, as an affected body, Mr. Makari, were you consulted before the decision was taken, and what was your input?
Yes, the NEF has been part of discussions following the release of the Wages Commission report, but we believe that those discussions were far from concluded, and we are not convinced that our inputs was duly considered. Our input concerns about job losses, unaffordability, and the need for exemptions, and also really for us to time the implementation of this to allow for employers to prepare themselves. You would normally expect that such a massive change would be done with employers being allowed at least a 12 months facing in period. But as you know, that we have been allowed a period of less than 6 months to prepare ourselves as employers for the implementation of the national minimum wage.
Well, with that now being said, and the minimum wage has been gazetted now to be in effect from January already, how are you planning then to implement the process, and what sensitization have you done, carried out to educate both employers and employees alike about this minimum wage?
So consultations with our members has been ongoing. The NEF has been built on the premise of conformance to statutory provisions, and that is also the message that we are sending across to our members to ensure that come 1 January, there is compliance in the absence of us finding the alternatives that we are seeking. So there's ongoing efforts to really educate the members in terms of what they need to do, and if it is not possible for them to do what is expected of them, the alternatives that are available to them has also been availed. And these alternatives are very minimal. Firstly, we have advised most of our members to start the process for exemption. And the exemption process is also not very clear in terms of what are the considerations that the ministry will apply to be able to do that. And as we speak, we are seeking audience with the ministry to also get clarity on that. And you would know that in terms of our laws, exemptions, any exemptions that an employer applies for, especially in an environment where an employer has exclusive bargaining agreements, they would need to have consent of the employees as well as the exclusive bargaining agent. We've also seen that some of our members that are operating in these environments are just not getting that support, which basically makes it very difficult for them to submit the exemption application. So these are all challenges that are on the ground that needs to be addressed. And our efforts are ongoing. We are also looking at other options of engaging the ministry to possibly look at the alternatives of deferring the implementation date, but these things are not guaranteed. For as long as those agreements are not reached, we are advising our employers to prepare for the 1st January implementation. Now, there's ongoing inquiries from employers that are saying it is unaffordable to them, and we have basically said, look, in that instance, you have only one option, and that's to restructure your business and invoke terminations for operational reasons and make sure that you have a workforce that would be affordable. for you as an employer, and that will secure your continued existence as a business.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't sound very promising. I mean, with that minimum wage might lead to job losses, for example. I mean, what efforts are being carried out to ensure that it does not lead into that direction?
Look, when you are expected as an employer to raise labor costs with over 100 or in some instances 200%, you've got one of two choices. Either you absorb that increase or you pass it on to your clients or end consumers, or you will have to restructure your business and scale down. So the options to employers are very limited, and we're not dictating to employers which option to take. It's for them to manage their own businesses and assess the alternatives that are for their own benefit in the medium to long term. Mm-hmm. I'll cite you an example. One of our members is the Security Association of Namibia, who out of their own initiation with the unions and government has put a forum together where they negotiate on wages and have basically put a sectoral wage in place for themselves. They are now expected to take a massive increase, I think, from the $8.50 hourly rate that was in place to $18. When the Security Association reached out to the NEF, our advice to them was go back to your clients and renegotiate the contracts. They have done that. And most of the clients has not been willing to basically absorb that $18.50 cost. So they're looking at other investments into CCTVs and scaling down on the number of guards that they will be utilizing. What is the security companies going to do with the guards that they cannot allocate to clients and charge a fee for? They will ultimately retrench these people. It's rather unfortunate, but it's inevitable. And I think the timing of it is also not appropriate. I think we should have allowed ourselves more time to prepare ourselves for this and manage the transition. But the ministry doesn't seem to share the same views, and there's generally a presumption on the part of the ministry that employers can afford that. Mm-hmm. Equally, the same challenge exists in the retail sector. Retailers can't pass 30-40% increases on prices to end consumers. It's not sustainable, it's not possible, and it's going to have negative economic impact. So they need to look at how they're going to restructure their businesses, which could impact trading hours and all these things to scale down on the number of hours that people are working and the cost involved. So the impact on the economy is massive, and I don't think we have given all the aspects that has a significant impact on this due consideration. And that is what we are asking the Ministry of Labour to say, pause, no need to rush. We are going to implement it. Let's just make sure we take a holistic approach and we do things correctly.
Right. Well, in closing, what is your message to fellow employers this time around and, when they are faced with a difficult task of implementing this minimum wage?
I think our message to employers has been that firstly, you need to prepare yourselves for statutory compliance. So make sure you are prepared and in a position to stay on the right side of the law. Secondly, we are collecting as much as possible information from our members to be able to engage the ministry with facts in terms of what the real consequences are. And we are looking at, and we're still confident that the Ministry of Labour will give us audience for us to be able to discuss the real concerns that we have and see if we can find alternatives, whether it is to defer the implementation dates to allow ourselves to prepare better for this, or whether it is to explore the options of sectoral wages that will be affordable. So, and that is our message to employers, really. Prepare for compliance. If not, if you think you are not going to be able to, start to restructure your business and issue the necessary notices in time for the termination for operational reasons. In the meantime, the NEF is still going to continue engaging with our social partners in the hope that we can mitigate the possible consequences that could emanate from the implementation of the minimum wage, especially when it comes to employment. Because if you look at the last labor employment survey we have, I think 2018 or 2019, unemployment was estimated at 33-34% about. And we all know that by this day, that number has increased substantially, even though we cannot pinpoint what the number is. So this is social obligation on all of us to really act responsibly in this matter and make sure that we do not aggravate the problem of unemployment in this country. And it's not just a matter of aggravating the problem of unemployment, because it's also employers will also not create new jobs in the future. As positions are vacated, employers will probably not rehire in an attempt to save cost. And these things will have impact on those that are unemployed.